Welcome to the Kalos Region, the place that introduced us to Mega Evolution, Fairy Type, and Ash Greninja. Now, I know there ain't a lot of new Pokemon, but I'm still gonna challenge myself by giving my trainer Omega Pokemon only from that region. And if you don't know, the two movies from that season's region are not canon, but the second one is a maybe. Also, I am going to add more Mega Evolution, not only from Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, but also from Pokemon ZA. But only Pokemon that you can catch, so no Mega Bat Caliber. Also, I want to add a character that never made it into anime, like Wally. And of course, it's none other than Calum. Now I'm going to mix my version of Calum with the video game and his adventure counterpart X from the manga. And now, without further ado, let's begin part 12. Once Omega, Ash, and Alexa arrive at Kalos, once they got off the plane, they see two flying Pokemon above them. Ash then trips on a step, landing heavily on the ground. But he was alright. Ash got up and asked Alexa for the location of her sister's gym, but both discovered that Alexa's sister's gym is not in Lumiose City, but in Stantaloon City instead. Alexa makes a phone call to her sister, while Omega and Ash decide to look around for more new Pokemon. After seeing a mysterious Pokemon appear on top of the roof aircraft control tower and jump over Ash and Omega's heads, then disappearing, they head back and told Alexa that there's more amazing Pokemon in Kalos. But as soon as Ash asked about her sister, Alexa told the trainers that her sister is still away from Stantaloon City. Both trainers were upset, however Alexa cheers them up by battling against the Lumiose City gym leader instead. However, Omega wanted to catch some new Pokemon and asked Alexa where the best place was. Alexa suggested Omega Route 4 near Stantaloon City. After saying goodbye to Alexa and wishing Ash the best of luck, Omega headed to Route 4. Omega looked around at Route 4 and saw Pokemon he hadn't seen before. While battling with his Eevee, the Pokemon ran away and unfortunately got away. But Omega sees another Pokemon he hadn't seen before. This one having wings and believing it's a flying type. Decides to battle and try and capture it. While battling with his Eevee, he managed to weaken it and threw a Pokeball, and after 3 shakes, Omega catches first Kalos Region Pokemon. After heading back to Lumiose City to heal his new team member, he saw Ash carrying an injured Pokemon, and accompanying him was 2 strangers. After catching up with them, Omega updated what happened. Tagging along with them, they rushed Froakie to Professor Sycamore's laboratory. While Froakie was getting healed, Omega was introduced to Professor Sycamore, Bonnie, and his brother Clement. Now everything still follows. Team Rocket made Sycamore's Garchomp go on a rampage. Ash, with his Pikachu and Froakie, saved Sycamore's Garchomp from top of Lumiose Tower. Ash's Pikachu then started to fall, and Ash went to rescue him, but they were both saved by Omega Blaziken. And in the end, both Omega and Ash receive a Pokedex to enter in the Kalos League, as well as Froakie choosing Ash. Now with the Pokedex, he finally knows the Pokemon that he caught on Route 4. Which of course is Fletchinder. After healing his team at the Pokemon Center in Lumiose, both trainers were entered in the Kalos League. Omega and Ash then received from Wigglytuff a badge case. And after all that, Omega got himself a town map of Kalos. Now Ash, Clement and Bonnie are planning to go to Stantaloon City. However, Omega told them that he's planning to go alone. As for why, he's been traveling alone ever since Kanto and want to keep following the same route. They understand and wish Omega the best of luck. After going on different paths, Omega battled with some trainers on Route 4 and got used to Eevee and Fletchinder. Once Omega arrived in Stantaloon City, he got himself there before Ash and his friends did. Once he got there, he battled against the Stantaloon gym leader and Alexa's sister, Viola. Now Viola called out Surskit while Omega used Eevee. During the battle, Surskit used Ice Beam on the ground, turning into an icy field, making it hard for Eevee to stand up. Knowing that Eevee has a disadvantage, called her back. Now, Omega used his newest Pokemon, Fletchinder. Now, Fletchinder got stronger while traveling, and dodged Surskit's Sticky Web attack, and then finished off with his newest move, known as Flame Charge, dealing so much damage and defeating Surskit, as well as melting the center of the battlefield. Now, Viola's next Pokemon was a challenge, and it was none other than her Vivillon. Viola's Vivillon was so strong that Omega's Fletchinder couldn't dodge Viola's Psychic attack, and got stuck in Surskit's Sticky Web. Then Viola charged up a Solar Beam. However, Omega quickly told Fletchinder to use Flame Charge, and by doing that, burned the Sticky Web and got away right when Vivillon fired its Solar Beam. Omega tells his Fletchinger to use Flame Charge again, and this time, Fletchinger was even faster thanks to Flame Charge, and after striking at Viola's Vivillon to the ground, Omega told his Fletchinger to end it with Peck. Omega was able to win the battle and receive the Bug Badge. However, once his Pokemon was fully healed at the Pokemon Center, his Eevee felt unhappy. She wasn't very useful against the gym leader during the battle. Omega cheers his Eevee up, saying that there's more stronger gym leaders out there, and the next one, she'll be ready. His Eevee cheers up and jumps for joy. On the way to Lumia City, he meets with a trainer who is lost. After introducing himself, he found out his name is Callum, and is on his way to Lumia City to get the starter Pokemon, Professor Sycamore. Since Omega's going to Lumia City, he showed Callum the way. Once there, at Lumia City, but since the next route is near Sycamore's laboratory, Omega was curious to see the starter Pokemon and asked to come with him. Callum was alright with that, and they both headed to Sycamore's laboratory. After meeting with Sycamore, he told Callum that he only has two, because the fire type, Fennekin, was picked by another trainer. So, Callum has two choices, the grass type Chespin, and the water type Froakie. After thinking for a bit, Callum picked Chespin. As for Froakie, he looked a bit disappointed. Omega, seeing how sad Froakie is, asked Sycamore if it's okay to take Froakie. After telling him why, Sycamore was happy to hear about Omega's response and gives him the Froakie. Now that Callum has a starter Pokemon, he's gonna enter in the Kalos League. So next time they meet, Callum would like to have a battle with him. After saying goodbye, Omega went his way to Route 5. While balancing trainers, he did see some new Pokemon. While some didn't catch his eye, some of his team evolved. Fletchling evolving to Fletchinder, and Froakie evolving into Frogadier. And while continuing his journey, he arrived in a small town known as Campria Town. After taking a rest there, he made his way to Route 7. But instead of going there, he was told that by some trainers that if he's looking for a new Pokemon, it would be a good place to go on Route 6. And after looking around, he found a new Pokemon he hadn't seen before, and it's a sword Pokemon, Honedge. After battling Honedge with Fletchinder, Omega catches Honedge and added him to the team. Continue on to the original path on Route 7, Omega battled against many trainers until he met with a new trainer named Penelope. Once Penelope called out Sylveon, Omega used his Pokedex and found out it's a fairy type. And since Omega doesn't know what type it's weak to, he decided to call out his newest Pokemon, Honedge. Unlucky for him, Honedge is a steel type, and it was strong against the fairy type Sylveon. Once he finished the battle, Omega asked Penelope more about fairy types. After knowing it's strong against fighting, dragon, and dark type, but weak against poison and steel types, Omega decides to get his own, and lucky for him, Eevee can evolve into Sylveon. Omega shows his Eevee to Penelope's Sylveon, and both see each other. With Eevee knowing that she needs to get to that level if she works hard enough. After saying goodbye, Omega went his way to Connecting Cave and enter into Route 8. Once Omega got out of there, he heads to the closest town, which is called Ambert Town. Once he healed his team, he heard about a scientist from the fossil lab is missing inside the Glittering Cave. Omega, wanting to help out, heads to the Glittering Cave, and after passing through Route 9, he made his way inside and encountered an evil group calling themselves Team Flare. However, Omega took down them one by one until he found the missing scientist. However, he didn't seem to be missing. He was only trying to get the fossil. Omega helped the scientist, and he received the fossil, what he called the Jaw Fossil. While helping the scientist exit out the cave, Omega found a green stone, and the scientist said that Omega found a Mega Stone, not knowing what it is. While headed back to the lab, the scientist said the Mega Stone with the Keystone, if the trainer and the Pokemon can make that Pokemon what's called Mega Evolution. Thinking of how cool that sounds, Omega decided to try and Mega Evolve one of his Pokemon. On the way back on Route 9, Omega saw a Pokemon he remembered on Alexa's team, and it was a Helioptile. Once it's his own, Omega battled it with Eevee and captured the Helioptile. Once Omega returned the missing scientist back to the lab, Omega asked them to provide the fossil he was given, and after yelling at the scientist who gave Omega the Jaw Fossil, they got to work. Soon the fossil Pokemon was revived, and it was none other than Tyrants. Omega was nice to meet Tyrants, and he was happy to meet Omega. They got very well, and Omega added him to the team. Now that that was out of the way, Omega passed through Route 8 and ended up in Silage City. Now instead of headed to the gym, Omega decides to train his team ready for the gym leader. and after 2 days of training, he battled against the stylish gym leader, Grant. Now just like the anime, Grant battled with only 2 Pokemon, while the Jolliger can use only his current team, and Grant uses Onix, while Omega uses Frogadier. And of course, with the training and the type advantage, Omega's Frogadier won the battle. Grant then called out his second and final Pokemon, Tyrant. Omega called back his Frogadier and called out his own Tyrant, which made Grant surprised. However, Omega would be the one, after seeing Grant's Tyrant using Draco Meteor, overpowering and defeating his Tyrant. Omega called back his defeated Tyrant and called out his Honedge. Honedge cut down Tyrant's Draco Meteor, but was able to get trapped by its jaws. Honedge break free using Metal Sound, however Tyrant returned Honedge with Dragon Tail. Omega having no choice but to call back out his Frogadier. With a bit of rest inside his Pokeball, along with the type advantage, Frogadier was able to beat Grant's Tyrant and won the battle. Grant then gives Omega the Climbing Badge. After Omega's team was fully healed at the Pokemon Center, he realized his team was very low leveled, so he decided to train them even harder. Whilst traveling and training his team to the next gym in Charlotte City, he meets up with another traveling trainer, and her name was Astrid. Now before they battle, she wanted this battle to be a 3-on-3, which Omega accepts, and the first Pokemon she called out is her Pyroar, while Omega called out Frogadier. Frogadier managed to hang in Astrid's Pyroar's attacks, however Astrid's Pyroar defeated Omega's Frogadier. Astrid then called out a second Pokemon, Meowstic, while Omega called out Tyrant. However, despite being a Rock and Dragon type, Tyrant was able to push back, ultimately defeating Astrid's Meowstic. With one win on both sides, this was a deciding battle, and Omega called out Eevee, and Astrid called out her Absol. Omega believing he could win with his Eevee, but Astrid surprised Omega by Mega Evolving her Absol, which shocked Omega and his Eevee. However, Omega didn't back down, but Mega Absol made his Eevee scared and won the battle by firing a powerful Dark Pulse. Eevee was very injured during the battle, which made Omega upset. Astrid was also upset that she went overboard and wanted to help out, so they camped out and took care of Omega's Eevee. Astrid still feels upset about using her Mega Absol against Omega, but he didn't mind because he knows that Mega Evolution is part of the region. Omega then showed Astrid the Mega Stone that he found. However, he doesn't know which Pokemon it belongs to. Astrid told Omega about the place he's going to, Showered City, about the Tower of Mastery, saying that's related to Mega Evolution. With the new info about the chance of Mega Evolution, Omega will continue his journey on the next day. Omega's Eevee overheard this discussion to get stronger, so that night, his Eevee sneaked out and started training by herself. Whilst training, Omega's Eevee remembers how much Omega is taking care of her and how much he means to her. That night, Omega woke up, found out that his Eevee was gone missing, and after walking around a bit, he found her training. Omega's surprised about his Eevee. While she was training, she didn't know that she was being watched. While she was training, Omega broke the silence and told her to get some rest. Eevee was surprised that she was being watched, but she shook her head, and after looking into her eyes, she wants to get stronger to fight alongside with his trainer. Omega, having no choice, trains with his Eevee all night. Once the sun rise up, his Eevee was very tired. Omega picked up his Eevee and went back to the others. Omega told his Eevee how much he means to her, and no matter what happens, he will keep her in the team. And then it happened. Eevee started to glow, and Omega quickly put down his Eevee. However, Eevee wasn't Eevee anymore, because she evolved into Sylveon. And once they returned back to the others, everyone was shocked and amazed about Eevee's evolution, and Omega requests Astrid to battle against her Mega Absol before parting ways, which she accepts. So the battle begins with Mega Absol against Sylveon, and Sylveon gracefully dodged Mega Absol's Mega Horn and Psycho Cut, and attacked back using her new moves, Fairy Wing, and Disarming Voice. And surprisingly in the end, Mega Absol was defeated. After saying thanks to Astrid, Omega made his way to Shallon City. While headed to the next city, his Pokemon got stronger, and after passing through the Prolectin Cave, and finally Omega arrived in Charlotte City. Once Omega got there, he healed his team at the Pokemon Center, then waited for the path of mastery to open so he can make his way there. Once he got there, he met with the master of the tower, Gherkin. Omega then shows Gherkin the Megastone he found and wants him to teach him. Gherkin refused, asked for why. He wants his students to keep the information hidden from the public. As soon as Omega responded back, Gherkin said that he's going to somewhere and the gym leader isn't here at the moment, which made Omega even more upset. So the next day, he decided to train his team ready for the gym leader to arrive back. Whilst training, he meets up with none other than Callum. And whilst catching up, Omega found out that he has 3 badges and more than 15 new Pokemon. As for where the rest are, they're at Sycamore's lab. Want to see how strong he is? He challenged him at the beach for a 3-on-3 Pokemon battle. Callum went first and called out his newest Pokemon, Charmeleon, which caught off guard Omega, but he regained his focus and called out his Tyrant. And even though Callum's Charmeleon knows Dragon Rage, with the hard training, Tyrant was able to win. Callum then called out his second Pokemon, Kangaskhan, and Omega called out his Honedge. However, Callum's Kangaskhan knows Flamethrower and Shadow Claw, which Omega didn't know, and in the end, his Honedge was defeated. With 1 win and 1 loss on each side, this was the final battle. Omega called out his Frogadier, and Callum called out Quilladin, which Omega was happy to see his Chespin evolve. Now, even though Omega doesn't have the type advantage, his Frogadier knows a move to counter Grass, Bug, and even Flying types when it evolves, and that move is none other than Aerial Ace. And with the hard training, was able to win. When it was all over, Omega asked Callum when he got Charmeleon, and said he got it from Professor Oak from Kanto. As for how, Professor Oak gave Sycamore some starter Pokemon from Kanto because in their final evolution, they can all Mega Evolve. And he picked Charmander because he can Mega Evolve into 2 different types, which Omega didn't know until now. And speaking of Mega Evolution, he decided to show Callum the Megastone he found, which made him surprised. However, Omega doesn't know which Pokemon belongs to it. Callum looks at the Megastone and thinks it belongs to a green Pokemon and asks Omega if he has any. Omega tries to remember all the Pokemon he catches through his journey. Then he remembers a Pokemon that he caught on his journey that is green, but also looks like the Megastone he has. First he called Professor Sycamore, but instead got his assistant Sophie. Omega asked to send his Helioptile to his lab so he can get a Pokemon from Professor Oak at Kanto, which she was happy to help. Once Helioptile was in Professor Sycamore's lab, Omega made a phone call to Professor Oak at Kanto. He then asked for his Tyranitar, asking why, and after a quick explaining of Mega Evolution and showing the stone, he said he might be able to Mega Evolve his Tyranitar. Surprised and happy to hear, Professor Oak transferred his Tyranitar over to Omega. Omega called out his Tyranitar, and they were so happy to meet each other. Then he stopped and looked at Omega's hands of the Mega Stone. Omega then told his Tyranitar about Mega Evolution, and which made him happy. However, since he had 6 Pokemon in his team, he needed to return back 1, so he sent Helioptile to Oaks for Tyranitar. After introducing Tyranitar to the rest of the team, Omega decided to use Tyranitar to train his team, and then Callum joined in the training, calling out all his Pokemon, and including the ones he didn't use in the battle. The Pokemon that Omega had never seen was Electrike, Beedrill, and a Pokemon he hadn't seen before called Trevenant, but it was in a different color, which Omega was surprised to see Callum having a shiny Pokemon. After a week of training, the gym leader finally arrived, so now Omega and Callum can battle against the gym leader, and since Omega arrived here first, he can battle against the gym leader, and once he arrived, he battled against the gym leader, Karina. Now Karina called our first Pokemon, Mifu, while Omega used Sylveon. With the type advantage and the hard training, Mifu was defeated by Sylveon's newest move, Moonblast. Karina then called our second Pokemon, Machoke, and Omega called back his Sylveon for Fletchinder. Although Machoke was very speedy and had powerful attacks, it was defeated with Flame Charge. And finally, Karan called out her final Pokemon, her Lucario, and immediately Mega Evolved her Lucario, which then proceeds to take out Omega's Fletchinder and Sylveon with little job. Now Omega knows his Honedge, Tyrant, and his powerful Tyranitar cannot face up against a Mega Lucario, so he decided to face Lucario with his Frogadier. However, even with Frogadier's speed was pushed back by Karan's Mega Lucario, and when everything was hopeless, Frogadier got back up and evolved into Greninja. With the new evolution, also came with new moves. Of course, his signature move, Water Shuriken, as well as his newest move, Night Slash. Well, even with Mega Lucario's power, Greninja holds up with his Speed Edge. As well as the move Aerial Ace, managed to defeat Karen's Mega Lucario, making Omega the winner and receiving the Rumble Badge. But before heading back, Omega asked Gurken once again to teach him about Mega Evolution. However, Gurken said no. As for why, because this Mega Stone is from Tyranitar, and he said if he doesn't have one, he won't teach him. But after bringing out his Tyranitar, he was shocked, and Omega just said, "So are you gonna teach me?" Before Gurken teaches Omega about Mega Evolution, Callum must face off against Karen the next day, and so Callum changed his team ready for tomorrow. Now Callum first used Pidgeotto against Karan's Mifu, and then Curlier against Machoke. And since Callum defeated both of them, it was now time for Karan and a Mega Lucario, which of course defeated Callum's Pidgeotto and Curlier. But Callum called out his final Pokemon, Beedrill. However, Callum's Beedrill had a stone which Omega didn't see whilst training, and before he says anything, Callum Mega Evolved his Beedrill, which surprised everyone, including Gurken. And with Callum's Mega Beedrill, was able to defeat Karan's Mega Lucario and received the Rumble Badge. When the battle was over, Gurken would like to know how Callum got a Keystone and a Beedrill Knight. Callum said when he was a kid, he helped an injured Weedle from Pansage, Pansear, and Pampor. And then after a month, he came back as a Beedrill, and then gave him the Beedrill Knight. As for the Keystone, his father gave it to him, after showing the Beedrill Knight. As for the Beedrill that rescued him, he's using the same one. Now that everything was dealt with, Gurken is going to teach Omega Mega Evolution. The next day, Gurken told Omega about the origin of Mega Evolution, and after seeing the Mega Stone, all he needs is the Keystone. But to receive it, he must defeat Gurken in a battle against his Lopunny, only using his Tyranitar. At first, Omega thought it was going to be easy since Lopunny is a normal type, but as soon as they arrived at the battle area of the gym, Gurken Mega Evolved his Lopunny, and now that Lopunny is a normal and fighting type. After hearing that, Omega didn't think he could win anymore. However, his Tyranitar looked back, knowing that he could win. As soon as the battle started, Tyranitar tried to hang in there, but Tyranitar got sent blind by a high jump kick. Just when Omega was about to give up, Tyranitar started to roar, symbolizing he's not giving up, and that they're gonna win this. Omega knocking some sense into him, and started to believe that he could win this, which in the end, they did. And after defeating Guru's Mega Lopunny, he was given a Keystone, and turned it into a Mega Bracelet. Omega thanks his Tyranitar and Guru for everything. After healing Tyranitar, Omega and Callum head their separate ways. While traveling and training his team, Omega's Fletchinder evolved into Talonflame, Honedge evolved into Dual Blade, and during the day, Tyrant evolved into Tyrantrum. Soon, Omega arrived in Coumarin City, and after healing his team, he battled against the Coumarin City gym leader, Ramos. Ramos called out his Jumpluff, while Omega wanted to save his Talonflame, called out his Dual Blade. However, Ramos doesn't know that Dual Blade knows Aerial Ace, which dealt a lot of damage to Jumpluff. Once Jumpluff was defeated, Ramos called out his second Pokemon, Weeping Bell. Omega called back his Dual Blade and called out his Sylveon. And during the battle, Weeping Bell tried to poison Sylveon. However, Weeping Bell got cute charmed after Sylveon used Drain Kiss, which made Weeping Bell enchanted. And after firing a Moonblast, Ramos' Weeping Bell was defeated. Ramos then called out his final Pokemon, Go-Goat, and Omega did the same and called out his Talonflame. Both Pokemon battled out until Go-Goat was defeated, making Omega the winner and receiving the Plant Badge. After healing his team, Omega traveled back to Lumio City through Route 13, and once he arrived there, he was surprised to meet one of his old friends, and it was none other than Wally. They catch up, and Wally said that he's here for the Kalos League as well as catching new Pokemon, but also trying to find a Mega Stone. And before Omega says anything, Wally would like to battle against him, which he smiles and accepts. Wally starts off with a Zumaro, and Omega starts out with Sylveon, which Wally was surprised, and Omega told him about fairy types. And during the battle, Wally's Azumarill learned a new move, known as Play Rough. Omega also told Wally that Azumarill is now a fairy type, which Wally didn't know about. And in the end, Sylveon was defeated by Wally's Azumarill. Then they called back their Pokemon for the second round. Omega called out Double Blade, and Wally called out Delcatty. And during the battle, Wally's Delcatty learned Disarming Voice, while it shot to Omega told Wally that fairy types are weak to poison and steel types. And soon, Wally's Delcatty was defeated by Omega's Dual Blade. And now for the final round. Wally called out his ace, Galing, and Omega called out his Greninja. Both Pokemon and their trainers battled with everything they got, until both Pokemon were unable to battle, making it into a draw. With that fun battle, both trainers healed their Pokemon, and Omega was warmed up, ready for the Lumiose gym leader. But before going, Wally would like to watch the battle as well, which Omega accepts, and they both headed to gym, and after meeting a robot named Clembot, and finding out Clement is the gym leader, which made Omega surprised. However, not waiting for Clement to come back, and want to see what Clembot can do, Omega accepts the battle. Clembot wastes no time and call out his Emolga, while Omega used Tyrantrum, and Tyrantrum defeat Emolga with ease. Clembot then called out a second Pokemon, Magneton. However, Tyrant won again, with only one Pokemon left, and Clembot called out his final Pokemon, Heliolisk. However, Heliolisk defeated Tyrantrum using a combo of Bulldoze and Dragon Tail. Decided to go all out, Omega called out his Tyranitar. Omega then told Wally watching to watch this, and Mega Evolve his Tyranitar. Wally and Clembot were shocked, and Omega's Tyranitar absolutely defeated Heliolisk, making Omega the winner and receiving the Voltage badge. After winning his battle, he decided to see Helioptile at Professor Sycamore's laboratory. After meeting Sycamore, he saw his Keystone, and he asked if any of his Pokemon can Mega Evolve, and he does, and he showed his Tyranitar. Sycamore kindly asked Omega because he is studying the power of Mega Evolution. At first, Omega didn't want to, but he was only going to borrow it, and to make sure he has a full team, he got back his Helioptile. And before leaving, Sycamore suggests to Omega to go to an Evolution Stone shop, and if they ask for a Sunstone, his Helioptile can evolve into a Heliolisk. With the new information, Omega and Wally head to the Evolution Stone shop. When they arrived there, Omega bought a Sunstone, but then Dual Blade came out, and then they told that Dual Blade can evolve using a Dust Stone. And Omega asked his Dual Blade if he wants to evolve as well, which he nodded happily. So Omega bought a Dust Stone as well. Once Omega bought both stones, he first evolved Helioptile into Heliolisk, and Dual Blade evolved into Aegislash. After saying goodbye to Wally, Omega makes his way to the next gym, which is in Laver City. Whilst traveling on Route 14 and battling, Omega's team has gotten a lot stronger, thanks to the training by Tyranitar. Soon enough, Omega arrived in Laver City. Once there and healed his team at the Pokemon Center, and he made his way to Gym Leader to face off against Valerie in a 2-on-2 Pokemon battle. Valerie wasted no time and called out her Sylveon, while Omega called out Heliolisk. Heliolisk completely dominated the battlefield, defeating Valerie's Sylveon. She then called out her second and final Pokemon, Mawile. Omega called back his Heliolisk and called out Talonflame. Talonflame, like Heliolisk, completely dominated the battlefield and finished off with Flame Charge, defeating Valerie's Mawile. And before Valerie gives Omega the badge, she then asks a question. What is the meaning of the strength between Pokemon and human? And Omega said, there's many ways of strengthening the bonds between Pokemon and humans, but for me, it's battling with another opponent, and it doesn't matter if you win or lose. Valerie smiles and gives Omega the Fairy Badge. Now that he has 6 badges, he healed his team, and then he's gonna make his way to the next gym in Alistar City. And that's the end of part 12. And now let me answer the most common question that you're going to be saying to me. Why did you bring back Charizard and have him Mega Evolve? Do you think it sounds easy just to give Charizard a Mega Stone? I don't know where you can get a Charizard Knight. And I know what you're going to say, why don't you just ask Professor Sycamore? Because he doesn't have them in the anime. The only Mega Stone he's got is a Garchomp Knight. And then you must be saying, why not Mega Island? Well, unfortunately, that only appears in Pokemon Journeys. And unfortunately, It hasn't appeared yet, but now you must be asking me, why Mega Tyranitar? Tyranitar is one of my favorite pseudo-legendary Pokemon. Some would say Salamence, some would say Metagross, but for me, Tyranitar is just unique. It's the only rock and dark type Pokemon in the pseudo-legendaries. As for why I replaced the Kangaskhan Knight with the Tyranitar right, finding one in the glittering cave just makes sense to me. And yes, I'm aware there is a Mega Tyranitar in the Pokemon anime. However, we don't know the Pokemon trainer's name, and we never see him again, ever. Besides, my trainer's gonna be facing off against Mega Evolution trainer soon. I got to get my trainer to that level. And yes, I did skip my character's summer camp again. Now, is there anything else I'm missing? Oh yeah, Froakie. Just like Chespin, Froakie got totally forgotten. And honestly, I am not going to plan to make an Omega Greninja. That is not going to happen. And yes, I am going to make Wally having a Mega Gallade. This has been building up for this very moment. Now with that out of the way, let's get to the Pokemon's moves. Let's start with none other than Eevee. Of course, she knows Tackle, Tail Whip, Swift, and whilst training, she learned a new move known as Baby Doll Eyes. And when she learned that Fairy type move, she was able to evolve into Sylveon. And when she evolved, Baby Doll Eyes became Draining Kiss, Tail Whip became Disarming Voice, and Tackle became Dazzling Gem. And finally, after a lot of training, Swift became Moonblast. Next up is Fletchling. Now, Fletchling knows Peck, Quick Attack, and Double Team, and before battling against Viola, the gym leader, knows Flame Charge. When Fletchling evolved into Fletchinder, Peck became Aerial Ace, Double Team became Ember, and Quick Attack became Steel Wing. And once it finally evolved into Talonflame, Ember became Fire Blast, and then Aerial Ace for Brave Bird. Next up is Froakie. Now, unlike Ash's Froakie, who knows Water Pulse, and Serena's Fennekin, who knows Flamethrower, it knows Pound, Bubble, and Quick Attack. And after training, it learned Water Pulse, and once it evolved into Frogadier, Frogadier forgot Quick Attack to learn Double Team. And before entering the third gym, forgot Bubble to learn Aerial Ace. And when it finally evolved into Greninja, forgot Water Pulse to learn Water Shuriken, as well as Pound, becoming Night Slash. Now it's Aegislash. Its moves are Sword Dance, Fury Cutter, Metal Sound, and Shadow Sneak. After the loss against second gym leader, Honedge improved its skills and learned some brand new moves. Shadow Sneak became Aerial Ace, and Fury Cutter became Slash. Once it finally evolved into Dual Blade, Metal Sound became Iron Defense. And once it finally evolved into Aegislash, Iron Defense became King's Shield, and Slash became Sacred Sword. Now for Helioptile. Helioptile knows Quick Attack, Thundershock, Tail Whip, and Razor Wind. After some hard training, Thundershock became Thunderbolt, Razor Wind for Bulldoze, Tail Whip became Dragon Tail, and Quick Attack for Parabolic Charge. Once it evolved into Heliolisk, it still knows the same moves. Next up is Tyrant. Of course, it knows Bite, Tackle, Stomp, and Roar. And when it evolves in Tyrantrum, all its moves change. It knows Ancient Power, Crunch, Dragon Tail, and Dragon Claw. And finally, Tyranitar, who still knows Rock Slide, Earthquake, Dark Pulse, and Crunch. And that's pretty much it. Hope you look forward to part 13, because I got a lot of plans for that one. This is Omega Emperor, stay awesome.